Good morning, everyone. Happy to see so many friends of Bob here. We're here to celebrate life. And today, specifically, we're here to remember and celebrate the life of Robert John Freer, who left this world in September of this year. Today we'll share music and words, maybe some tears, surely some hugs and smiles and laughs. You're invited as well to share refreshments and conversation in our hospitality room at the far end of the hallway and to the left at the conclusion of the service. Just a little housekeeping. There are restrooms just outside the sanctuary in the small hallway to the left, and we have assisted hearing devices at the door if you should need them. Let's see what I'm doing. My name is Sue Klein, and I'm a little nervous. Anyway, I'm a member here at the Gathering at Northern Hills, and I knew Bob since he joined a small renegade group called the Gathering in 2003, which group merged with this congregation in 2016. As a Unitarian Universalist fellowship, we are diverse and inclusive. We have no shared creed. Our shared covenant is expressed through the inseparable and deeply interdependent shared values of interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity, all centered around love. We welcome all people in all stages of their search for truth, and we support them on that path. Today, we welcome especially members of Bob's family, his son, they're sitting here in the front, his son Tom with his wife Heather, and their children, Jordan, Sawyer, and Clavey, here from California by way of Madison, Wisconsin, yesterday. We welcome Bob's traveling companions on this journey of life, his friends, his co-workers, and co-seekers in this place we call church. We are grateful for your presence. As we begin our service, I have asked Jordan and Sawyer to light our chalice to acknowledge this giver of life, light, and warmth. We light this chalice, which transforms wax into pure light and warmth, to remind us of our own living, transforming the stuff of this world into the love and activity of our daily lives. As we remember Bob, may today bring forth transformation in ourselves, from grief, healing, from memory, wholeness, and from celebration, love. Please stand as you are willing and able, and as we join our voices to honor our friendship with Bob.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life,
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Our hearts are full today because a constant, loyal, justice-seeking, authentic, and loving friend has left the world he inhabited for 89 years. Along that path, he studied, he served his country, he worked in service for our country, he raised a family, and found oh so many ways to provide of his resources to those with less. But Bob Freer was a stone thrower. In the fairly short time I knew Bob, he volunteered here among his fellow members for nearly every effort that was launched. He was a monthly volunteer for the Free Store Food Bank, for Upspring, an organization for homeless youth, for the Valley Interfaith Resource Center near here. He almost single-handedly started and managed a semi-annual rummage sale for the gathering, primarily so that people in our over-the-Rhine neighborhood who needed things for daily living had an affordable way to get them. Bob's immense joy in this endeavor was in seeing a young family leave our storefront with every kitchen supply one could imagine, including entire sets of dishes, for a grand investment of, say, $10. But not in seeing how much money we would get. After the merger with this congregation, Bob became a valuable member of our own rummage sale team. He was dedicated and seemed tireless. He contributed his unique caned chairs to our own auction, then helped to set up and tear down the auction itself. And he attended the event and probably spent some money on someone else's donation. He cleaned, he cooked, he painted, he cleaned some more. How fortunate we were. No task was too small, and he was a vocal cheerleader for those who just might be tired. He showed up for every event we set up and contributed in ways we never knew. In the life of every organization, we need Bob Freers. In the life of every community, we need Bob Freers. I frequently encountered Bob while he was an usher at Cincinnati Symphony concerts. It was a joy to see him, would make my day. Cynics would say, well, he didn't have to pay for a ticket, of course he ushered. Are you a cynic? I'm here to say it's okay to get something for your effort, your volunteerism, perhaps a free ticket or free parking. Getting that free ticket does not diminish one jot the value of that volunteer's effort, particularly if it was Bob Freer. Greeting concert goers, handing out programs, helping listeners find their seats. It's not okay to grouse about his effort and sit by and do nothing. In those evenings at the symphony, Bob Freer performed a kindness that, like skipping a stone in the ocean, sent out a ripple of kindness and helpfulness and welcome. A ripple that would cast its circle ever wider and affected those over whom it washed. What child who received a weekend lunch parcel packed by Bob Freer at the Free Store Food Bank had a better weekend because she wasn't so hungry? What single mom who had perhaps never learned life skills, such as following a menu or budgeting or balancing a checkbook, was splashed by a ripple instigated by Bob Freer, who made up for lost time and helped them learn those life skills at Valley Interfaith? Perhaps that mom who realized she had better teach her 12-year-old how to handle money. Perhaps the son of the family that bought that $10 dinnerware set at the gathering invited a hungry friend to come home and share his sandwich and milk. And Bob's travel companions, he did love to travel, and I'm told His favorite city was Prague. Did a fellow tourist notice an example of beautiful architecture only when Bob pointed it out to him? Did Bob's knowledge of history and his attention to justice and fairness cause a fellow tourist to reevaluate the global implications of a world event that was commemorated by a monument in Europe? Or did the nurse who was caring for Bob in the rehab center decide to come back another day because Bob showed gratitude, not complaints, for the late dinner? And it's fun to play bridge or euchre each week, even if it seems frivolous to the uninitiated. I wonder how often his fellow card players were overcome by ripples of laughter and joy, even if Bob won. If you have looked at the pictures we have of Bob, he seemed like a pretty serious guy, except when joined by his loving family. But his love for life showed up in his quick, dry humor, in his witty but true comments that seemed to bring debate to a close. These comments, this laughter, the subtle jokes shared by this humble man, more stones thrown in the river. Yes, Bob Freer was a stone thrower. How fortunate we were to be within range of those ripples. Let us take just a moment now to reflect on why we are here. What would we say to Bob if he walked through the door? What do you think he would say to you? Would you greet him with tears or with a smile of relief and a bear hug? What would you wish for him, for his family during this time of loss and grief? What would you promise him? What would you have promised him if you saw him the week before he died? Just a moment, please. So at this time, we have a chance to hear from those who would like to share their thoughts, remembrances, and stories. Our former pastor, Reverend Doug Slagle, was unable to be present for this celebration. He was a champion to Bob, and I'm quite sure it was mutual. Reverend Doug wrote a eulogy for Bob, and it will be read by his friend, Don Fritz, a friend of both Bob and Reverend Doug, and a friend of the gathering. I thank you, Don, for bringing this gift. Boy.
There's a certain irony in my being here at this particular time, despite the fact that after Bob moved to California, we talked every morning on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. He would call me before he got out of bed at 6 o'clock, knowing that I was still in bed at 9 o'clock. I don't start functioning until about 12 or 1. But I was one of the original founders of the gathering where I met Bob, and he became a very good friend, bridge player, intimidating as hell, because he really knew how to play bridge, to play cards. He was sharp as hell, but you never knew what he was thinking. But I'm happy to read words of your former pastor and former pastor of the gathering, Doug Slagle. These are his words. I was privileged to be Bob's friend and minister for 12 years. Some words I use to describe Bob are committed, loyal, generous, intelligent, quiet, and kind. From the day I first met Bob, when he visited the Gathering small storefront church in Cincinnati's Over the Rhine area, I knew he was committed to help others. He eagerly volunteered to be a part of our team that prepared weekend food bags for elementary-aged children in need. This is not an easy job. It involves standing for 2 hours in an assembly line configuration and quickly but efficiently stuffing paper bags with enough food to nourish one child for 3 days. Except for when he was out of town or sick, Bob volunteered at each and every time our church served at the Free Store organization, which was 12 times a year. He also volunteered with our teams that prepared hot lunches at the Lighthouse, shelter for the young adults, also 12 times a year. Again, Bob was there for each time the gathering served. I estimate Bob's commitment to volunteering to those places for 12 years means he helped feed literally thousands of underprivileged and homeless youth. Bob was also committed in his work for the Gathering and later when it merged with UU Church to become the Gathering at Northern Hills. At the Gathering downtown location, he single-handedly let out twice yearly rummage sales, which made the church look like, for a time, an overstuffed flea market. Each Sunday afternoon sales events made the church perhaps $200. More importantly to Bob, however, was how those sales met the needs of poor families in Over the Rhine who were delighted to buy small appliances, glassware, dish sets, pots, pans, TVs, and stereos, each for less than $5. Buyers smiled broadly as they left with their gently used items, and even though Bob remained outwardly stoic, Bob was, by the way, a hard read. He was inwardly thrilled with how he and the church were truly helping people. And when the Gathering merged with UU Congregation, he soon heard about its annual auction that took months to plan and which brought the church thousands of dollars. At each meeting, there was Bob, the only man among 10 or so women. They quickly and happily adopted Bob into their group as he showed his unusual commitment and diligent work ethic. Bob was also loyal to his friends, particularly his best friend in later years, James Helm, to the Primetimers men's group for which he was a part, to the church, to his volunteering efforts, to me, and most importantly, to his son, Tom, his daughter-in-law, and their 3 children. Bob loved all those people through the decades, long loyally to them. Bob was equally generous to all of them, often in ways that they were unaware. As this church's minister, Bob approached me several times with very large checks he was donating to help fund various church projects, but he swore me to secrecy and to simply say that the giver wishes to be anonymous. This church's exterior siding and its social Quimbley room were all remodeled at significant expense, mostly due to Bob's donation. I never told anyone who donated the money, except that the individual did not want to be known. Several people guessed the person must be Bob because they knew of his quiet humility, but I never confirmed it until now. Please forgive me, Bob, for sharing that secret. I hope your generosity will now be a part of your legacy and figurative afterlife. Bob was also intelligent. I realized that after he told me he had been a supervisor for the IRS, someone who trained others how to spot sophisticated tax cheaters. He didn't spot enough of them. He was also well-read, a very capable bridge and poker player, and a keen analyst of politics, theology, and other events in our nation. I and others enjoyed deep conversation with him about multiple subjects. Bob was a quiet man. It often took someone a while to fully get to know him. I personally don't think that many people got to know him really well, and that's unfortunate. I believe that mostly came from his humility. He did not feel any need to speak of himself, his achievements, his thoughts. Sadly, his quiet demeanor also came from being hurt by others when he came out as a gay man in midlife. He was a part of the generation of gay men who experienced discrimination and hate when they were young, who eventually saw attitudes change for the better in their later years. By coming out, Bob showed his courage to finally be himself, and more importantly, to help change widespread stereotypes that gay men are unworthy of respect. After coming out, Bob was the same good and decent person he'd always been. That reality for Bob and thousands of others like him emphasize that most gay men are normal, everyday good people, just like Bob. There are some brothers, someone's son, father, uncle, friend, colleague, and minister. As Bob well knew, they too deserved the human right to be loved and to be loved. Finally, I knew Bob to be consummately kind to others. He certainly was so to me. Like any other person, he was not perfect, and he had his occasional moments of anger. But more than anyone, Bob was kind in his loyalty, his commitment, generosity, and mindset. As I say in all memorial service I've been a part of, whether heaven or an eternal afterward is real or not, this one thing I promise to everyone: we will live onward far into the future by the impact for good we do in this life. Bob helped feed thousands of children and youth in need, something which helped them in their educations. They will never know Bob's name or what he did for them, but his impact for good carries forward to those children's families, schools, work, and their future children. Bob's same impact echoes onward with this church and congregation, in my life and that of his many friends, and in lives of Bob's son Tom, and his much-loved grandchildren. Because of Bob, all of our lives have been better. That enabled us to pay forward his goodness and generosity. Both literally and figuratively, Bob is present with us right now, and he will continue to be with us long into the future. We honor, we love, and we thank him for his remarkable life. Let me add personally, I'll miss you, Bob.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for bringing Doug's words and your own experience to us. I think we knew him fairly well. Bob's son Tom would like to share a few words, And we have a couple of other folks who are listed in your program, but at the end, we will be able to accept comments or thoughts or ruminations from anyone who would like to speak. So, Tom, if you want to come up here, and I think Heather said she wanted to speak too, so please come ahead. Excuse me.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tom. I am Bob's youngest son. And the first thing I want to say more than anything is thank you for being here. It makes me feel so happy to know that he had this community here, and understand that there's one of the themes going through the first couple speakers is Bob being a tough read and Bob not emoting and expressing himself. But you just got to know that that this was his community and he loved all of you. He might not have said it, but know that it's true. All right, I would worry about him a lot. Like, my dad, my 80-year-old something dad living in Cincinnati alone, was he living a fulfilled life? Was he surrounded by good people? Was he getting the most out of every day? And after the words you hear today and the times that I talk to him regularly, my worries were relieved just knowing that he had this place to come to and this community. So thank you so much. These memorials are always interesting to me. It never seems like enough. You take 89 years of somebody's life and condense it down into like 1 hour. It's like, it's really hard to do. So I'd just like to share some memories. I'll probably cry a few times. But Bob was a self-admitted crybaby, and he would tell you to don't be afraid to cry. I'll never forget at my wedding watching him, his chin started quivering. It burned in my mind forever. But I have a lot of memories of Bob, and I know his memories will live on, and I will remember him at the most random times. Like I was in the cold room at Costco the other day, and Bob loved corn on the cob, and I saw the corn on the cob. I'll never be able to go to In-N-Out Burger again without thinking of Bob. Of course, I'll never be able to play cards again. And for some reason, he put brownies or milk on his brownies, and I'll never do that. But if I ever see anybody do that, I'll think of Bob. Kind of odd. For the rest of my life, I'll probably drive an economy car because that's what Bob would do. He was born in a small town in Minnesota in 1936, and he was raised in an even smaller town, and I'm guessing it wasn't easy growing up at the time. He wasn't exactly surrounded by open-minded, progressive thoughts in the 50s in small-town Minnesota, so it must have been very difficult. His parents were stoic. He wasn't filled with everyday I love yous and hugs and things like that, and he only really started expressing that when we did started expressing it to him. So he learned later in his life how to sort of express his emotions, at least to those closest to him. He was insanely proud of being the valedictorian of his high school. He was co-valedictorian, I guess, if you wanted to be technical. And after that, he joined the Army and he served his country honorably, earning an Army Commendation Medal. And you might not have known that. He didn't go around wearing that on his sleeve. Most people probably wouldn't even know that he was in the Army. He got his degree from the University of Minnesota, married Isabel Gunlogson, and then did work 35 years at the IRS. He was chosen to go to Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia, which, looking back, was probably a pretty big deal for him to be chosen to go to these countries and help them get their things in order. Kind of a big deal. They had 3 kids together. They did part ways in 2005, but not before providing me with a wonderful childhood where I always felt super safe and super loved. He was a super simple guy, very simple tastes. He never took more than he needed. And to him, a big night out, an awesome night out, was going to In-N-Out Burger, usually with all of us. He'd get a cheeseburger animal style and a strawberry shake. And I mean, it's kind of a California thing. I don't know if anybody knows what In-N-Out Burger. It's like if somebody from here went somewhere and said, we went to Skyline Chili, like it's kind of a California thing, so I don't know. But it got real crazy when he figured out that Neapolitan shakes were even better. Like now I'm putting 3 shake flavors in 1 cup. Like that was a big step for him. He was a quiet guy, and I really think he was misunderstood a lot. We did a memorial at his retirement community out there, and we said all the same words about how much he loved everybody, and people were actually surprised because I feel like he was very, very misunderstood. He loved everybody. He loved being around people, but he was also super comfortable being alone. He was super comfortable with that. He wasn't going to be super outgoing and ask somebody to sit with them at lunch, but like Don said, once the ice was broken and you got to know Bob, then you were fast friends. And he just wasn't raised, again, expressing his feelings. There's a very famous story about a Norwegian farmer in Minnesota, and this is kind of the upbringing that he had. This Norwegian farmer, he loved his wife so much that he almost told her. And that's what Bob was raised with. So it has its roots in that type of upbringing. All right? I'd heard about his card playing all the time. He lived for cribbage, euchre, and his favorite, of course, bridge. One of my regrets is not learning how to play bridge before Bob passed along. I would joke with him, like, that's kind of for old people, isn't it? Like, I mean, and so maybe one of these days I'll learn how to play bridge, and I'll do that for him. He would come to our house every Sunday, and we would play cards and celebrate the Sunday. And a little side note, sidebar, I think before he moved from here, one of his friends, I can't remember who, was like, hey, just so you know, like, nobody will ride with Bob in a car anymore. He's not really, and I was like, okay. Just FYI, he did drive up until the bitter end, and to varying degrees of success. And I'm fair to say that he probably relied on the awareness of the other drivers to help him get where he was going. So he did keep driving. He liked to win at his cards. If he was losing, he would always reference his mother. He would say, my mother always said, I've seen sicker dogs than this get well, if he was losing in a card game. And that was one of his favorite sayings. We would go to the local Indian casino and play Pai Gow, because we could play for hours and not win a whole ton and not lose a whole ton. And that became one of his favorite things to do. And nothing made him more happy than when he found a penny on the ground. You would hear about it. I mean, that was his thing. We've referenced Bob's volunteerism. Super proud of that. He volunteered regularly for all kinds of things. There's Spirit of Volunteerism awards out there. And as far as being an usher at the symphony and getting a free ticket, well, I belong to a gym in California, and I figured out that if I got a job teaching spin classes, then my membership would be free. So he passed along those great traits to me. So and one thing I did used to sort of worry, he was very active politically too in political campaigns. He loved Barack Obama, was a champion for underdogs and people that needed help. And he volunteered during Obama's campaigns. He would knock on doors and things, and I would kind of worry about him, like, oh man, don't knock on the wrong door, like, oh, this could be bad. And I wouldn't really expect him to be doing it in today's climate, but he was a big-time volunteer politically. So he loved nothing more than his grandkids. He came out 3 times a year religiously before he moved out. And when he did move out, I think those that knew him knew that it was time. It was time for him to not live alone and move into a retirement community. He didn't miss a soccer game, water polo game, or a swim meet, graduation, or anything else, and found connection with his 2 oldest grandchildren when they became valedictorians, and he was super proud of that, super proud of that. Like, that's connection that he had with them. And sorry, I wasn't valedictorian, Dad. I apologize. Not even close. Okay, it'd be a stretch to call Bob adventurous, but he liked thrills in a controlled manner. Loved roller coasters. You saw the picture of him ziplining. So the illusion of danger, but really, they're pretty safe. He loved that kind of stuff. He was notoriously an anti-exerciser, didn't exercise a day in his life. His joke would always be, if somebody asked him, he would say, he would do this, he would go, something like that. That's the only exercise I do. But ironically, a couple of years ago, he wanted to live to be 100, and his doctor said, well, you should probably start exercising. And so he did. He literally started riding an exercise bike at 87 years old. I almost croaked when I heard. I was like, what? And he was riding 20 minutes a day, and I think he got up to 24 minutes a day. So he loved rafting with us. He rafted into his early 80s. And he literally changed my life. He took me whitewater rafting when I was 14 years old, and I was in a boat, and I said, that's what I want to do with my life. And so he gave it up in his early 80s, and his joke was always, well, the water's too wet, so I'm not going anymore. Growing up, he loved, for his whole life, he loved game shows and sitcoms. My most cherished memory with him was Thursday nights in front of the television. We would watch The Cosby Show, Family Ties, Cheers, and Night Court every Thursday night, no matter what. And that was our time together, and I knew it was going to happen no matter what. And it's possible that might have contributed to me not being valedictorian, so I can sort of blame you. He was an awesome, awesome father-in-law. Super chill to have around, low maintenance when he visited, not a big deal. And Heather got her initiation into Bob's humor pretty early on into our relationship. We were sitting around one morning, mid-morning or something, and Bob looks at us and he was like, hey, did you have your favorite breakfast today? And Heather and I were sort of like, what are you talking about? Like, favorite breakfast, what? And then he would hit you with the punchline. And this one he said, a roll in bed with honey. And I was like, welcome to the family, Heather. But he loved the entire side of the family and got along famously with them. And Heather's mom is big into cards and things, and we would get together and they would play cards, and it was really, really awesome. So again, it's tough to reduce 89 years into a few minutes. And Bob was just a normal, everyday guy. Showed up to work, raised a family, did the right things, never did anything extraordinary. And, those are the types of people that should be celebrated the most. Nothing spectacular about him. He's just Bob. Ultimately, the thing I'd like to reiterate is that I never saw him be mean to anybody. At his core, he was a kind, gentle soul. I miss him every day, and I'm so glad he was my dad. And if he could be here, I think he would pass along some last thoughts. I think he would ask everybody to be kind. He'd probably advise you to save your money. If you're playing cards and you were stalling a little bit, he would say nothing ventured, nothing gained. And then he'd probably beat you because you made a bad choice. He would really encourage you to be involved in your community. You might not have a lot, but everyone has a lot to give. And again, he would say, don't be afraid to cry.
I'm Heather Freer. I'm Bob's daughter-in-law. I'm not going to speak for very long. But, it's all gone out of my head what I want to say. But Bob was, from the start, I think part of the reason why I married Tom, and it was due to the depth of his character and who he was. Tom and I met rafting. I was a passenger on a river trip, and I'd grown up doing a little bit of rafting in New Mexico, and we met rafting. And we started to fall in love on that first trip and started to send letters to each other. And we met for dinner. I was living in Los Angeles, and we met for dinner. And started sort of talking about our relationship. And I knew Tom had been in the Marines and he'd lived in the Midwest and so on. And I said, well, it's kind of a deal breaker. I should lay some things out on the table. If you have any problems with the fact that that I have a brother who's gay, you should probably let me know now, because that's a deal breaker. He said, oh, I can one up you on that one, and told me about his dad. When I met Tom and we got married, his parents were still married, and they split up a few years into our own marriage. And I was really worried that, because Bob was really sad about that, and I was worried that about what he would do with that sorrow and that loneliness. And instead, it launched Bob into this most beautiful chapter of his life, which was with the gathering and with all of you here. And watching Bob come out of his shell and be so tied to community and filled with joy was incredible. He visited for a month at a time, 3 times a year, and I knew that he was probably so missed here because of how much he did while he was here. And I thought, how could they survive without him for a month at a time? He does so much. He was so humble. He was so modest. He told me once, about 10 years ago, that he'd always wanted to have this red sports car. I can't remember what kind it was. And I looked at him because I remember the last car that he bought, he was so angry that you couldn't choose to have roll down windows and you had to buy a car that had automatic windows. And he was mad that he had to pay for that. So I said, why don't you? You could. That's absolutely in reach for you. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and there was so many better things for him to do with his money and what he had done. I come from a family that we said, I love you at every turn. And that wasn't something that was a big part of their lives, but I started saying it right away to Bob because I loved him right away. It was really clear who he was. When Tom and I had that initial conversation, one of the things Tom told me too was that due to a medical situation a few years earlier, Bob had, his stoicism had been made even stronger by a medical event that gave him sort of a stroke-like after effect and caused his affect to be very flat. And so he had this very stoic look on his face, but boy, it made it even more effective when he would sling his one-liners and his jokes and things like that. He just got you in the gut every single time because it came from this kind of glaring look, and he would say these things that just would shock you and make you laugh. There's nothing, of course, that I love more in my life than my own family and my children. And Bob never, ever, ever missed a single birthday, Christmas, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, Halloween. He sent a card to my kids for every single holiday. He showed up for as many of them as he could. He would time his month-long visits, but he sent them those cards every single holiday without fail, and he would give them the gift of his time and his presence. And while he wasn't effusive or wouldn't, want to go on vacations or do anything like that, that time that he spent with us was invaluable. Soon after he passed, my sons had their birthdays, and it felt so strange to not check the mail and get those cards in the mail, because even though he lived close, he would either hand them to us or they'd show up in the mail. And the first Sunday that passed without his car rolling up the driveway at 4:00 to come was really, really hard. But we spent the last days with him in the hospital playing cards, and he was still slinging his one-liners and saying all the right things and joking, and we'll always have that. He'll always be with us in those card games, in those dinners, but most importantly, in that strong sense of loyalty and of love. And my kids will always know how deeply they were loved. And I have no doubt that they'll always share that love, and they will always have such a strong sense of justice and a true sense of knowing what's right and what's important in the world, and that it's not red sports cars, but it's showing up for your community and your family in every single day in the most important ways. He loved you so deeply, and those calls at 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning for you, were at 6 o'clock in the morning for us. He lived with us for 6 months after he arrived, and we'd be dead asleep, and we'd hear Bob get on the phone, because it was pretty good volume in our house. And so we'd all hear him get on the phone and call you and his friends. He'd have his list, and then he'd go right back to sleep, and we'd be awake. So he probably could have pushed those phone calls a little bit later, but he wanted to make sure people loved him. And I think that was a really good lesson for me as well, is to remember to acknowledge and make those habits and keep those people close, because it's so important. But I love to meet all of you and to know you, because your names were spoken in so much love and so much respect by him. He spoke so often and frequently of all of you. This place transformed him. This group of people transformed him and led him into such a beautiful stage of his life that I'm so glad we got to share with him as well. So thank you for being here. It means so much to us, and we're so glad to celebrate his life with you.
Thank you, Tom, Heather. I'm wondering if you would adopt me. So James Helm is another of Bob's good friends who got those frequent phone calls, I think, and he would like to say a few words.
Good morning, everybody. Bob Freer was, Bob Freer was the most selfless person I had ever met. He was so kind. He was, when I met him, he was volunteering. He was ushering. He was a member at the gathering. I went there October 2010. And we've been friends ever since. I had to Bob to meet my mother one time, and after that first encounter with Bob, whatever the next holiday that was coming up, she told me to invite Bob. Before I can ask her, could Bob come to whatever that next holiday was? She told me, yeah, please invite Bob if he's not doing anything. So Bob came, and Bob has been a staple at all of our family outings ever since then. When Bob was in California or wasn't able to attend, people always asked about him, my family members. We all love Bob very much. Bob and I went on a lot of trips together. We went on about 6 trips together, and one of those was to his hometown, Farmington. Frontier Airlines were coming to the Greater Cincinnati Airport, so I called Bob and asked him if he wanted to go to Minneapolis, because they were having a sale going to Minneapolis. So he said yes, so we went. He said, I'm going to rent a car, and I'm going to drive to my hometown. So we did that. So while we were there, I asked Bob, I said, Bob, do you want to go to the cemetery to visit your parents? He said yes, and we did. We went there. There, I kept seeing signs for St. Olaf, and I used to be a Golden Girls fan. So I saw a sign that said St. Olaf College. I said, oh, Bob, I have to go to St. Olaf. We have to go there. He said, James, it's just the college. I said, okay, Bob. But we went anyway, and that was a nice trip to see his hometown, talk to his parents, and tell them how grateful I was for Bob and his friendship. Bob and I loved each other. We weren't lovers, but we both loved each other. He was, I was the best friend that that I ever had. And I miss him. He wanted to live to be 100, and every year on his birthday, I tell him, reminding him how close he was, and I'm just so sorry that he couldn't make it. That picture over there with Bob, with a T-shirt, we had took a bus tour to Selma, the 50th anniversary of the March on Selma. And Hughes High School, they were sponsoring the trip. And Bob was the only white person on the bus. It didn't bother Bob at all. Just like when he came to our cookouts and things, he was the only white person there, and nobody, he didn't mind being there. Nobody mind Bob being there. He was just a wonderful human being. He was so proud of his grandchildren. He would always be going to soccer games, swim meets, and water polo matches, I think. He loved whitewater rafting. I think he told me he used to drive the van a lot for his son. See, that rubbed off, huh? Well, tell me he wasn't cheap, but he was thrifty. He loved going to the thrift stores. Every Saturday, I think there might have been another day during the week, they offered seniors a discount. Oh, Bob was there. Yeah, Bob was there. He never missed a Saturday at the thrift store. There are about 1 million different stories I could tell you about Bob, but I won't bore y'all. But he was loved by me and my family. And I miss him so much. I'm so glad that he was a part of my life. Thank y'all.
Sue, that's Ken over there.
I know. I have one thing to add, though. James told me this story, but didn't tell us. I guess on that trip to Selma, Bob, at one of the stops that the bus made, Bob came out with a big box of candy and just passed it around the bus, because that's the kind of guy he was. It was just, everybody is included all the time. So there's a big box of candy in the reception area after this. So Ken Bronner apparently didn't know he had committed to speak at Bob's funeral, but was reminded of that. And he is here to share some stories. Let's take this with me. Oops.
Thanks, Sue. And no, I didn't remember, but Tom reminded me of it. A commitment's a commitment, just like what Bob would do. I knew Bob for probably 25 years. When I first met him, he was still married, and I went through some of that pain with him. He was glad it was over, but he was very sad that it was over. And I'm glad I didn't write down what I was going to say, because everybody's already said everything I was going to say. So I can address some of the facts. Heather, I was with him when he was car shopping, because I always was the car shopper, as with Don and as with other friends. And he was very frustrated. He could not get roll down windows. And when I pointed out to him that power windows, the mechanisms were lighter weight than the mechanisms of the roll down windows, and he would get better gas mileage with the power windows, he was sold. And Tom, I'm the one that told you not to let Bob drive. Before he left here, I rode with him one time, and he got in the car and he took his hearing aid out. I go, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't keep my hearing aids in while I'm driving." He goes, "That way I don't have to listen to the cars blowing their horns at me." Bob loved to play cards. I played euchre. I played bridge with him. I didn't like playing bridge with him. He was too good. He could make mincemeat out of me. He could finagle me, and most of the time I didn't even know it. He was really, really good. Euchre, I played with him forever. I did a lot of fundraiser for some charity groups, and he would always be right there, bringing a donation or food if it was a potluck or something along those lines. He introduced me to the gatherings, euchre players. I would come here, and he'd call me up, and he'd say, "The gathering's having a euchre tournament. I need a partner. Will you go?" Well, I had to go. Of course I was going. We always had a good time. And we traveled a lot together. And admittedly, I was selfish. It was on my agenda because I love to go to the Caribbean. And we took quite a few cruises through there. And frequently we would go with other people, and some of them would go on this tour or that tour, and all this. We were on one island in the Caribbean and came back at the end of the day. Bob was well into his 70s at that point. I learned then that he took a zip line across the island. And I thought, are you nuts? One Thanksgiving, a friend of mine had a timeshare in Cayman Islands. They weren't going to use it. I said, "Bob, let's go." Okay. So we went to Grand Cayman for Thanksgiving, and guess what? They don't serve turkey in the Cayman Islands. They serve fish. Bob went into the kitchen and asked for turkey, but he still didn't get it. But his sense of adventure was great. We went snorkeling with the stingrays. Bob didn't bat an eye. I was scared to death. It's just what he did. He would frequently call me and say, "Oh, I went to Lexington yesterday." "Why?" "Well, just 'cause." "Oh, I went to Terre Haute a few days ago." "Just 'cause." He loved a sense of adventure, and he would never say no to that. I was envious of him for that. We'll miss Bob.
Thank you, Ken. Fun stories. See, that's a side of Bob that I did not see, but I don't play cards very often, so. Is there anyone here who would like to share some thoughts or experiences or stories? Because if there is someone here who would like to do that, we can bring you a mic. And you're welcome to take a few minutes to do that. Just raise your hand. Jack, I can always count on Jack. Oops. Okay, thank you.
I don't have anything profound to add. You all have said it all so well, but Bob just means enough to me that I want to take my shot and say something. You all described him so well, his personality. One word you didn't use that I always use for Bob was taciturn. And but in the end, Bob, we all saw through you. We got through that, and it kind of made Bob's wonderful personality even more valuable because you had to kind of work your way to get to it. And just two other things. I think when people pass on, the most profound compliment they can be accorded is that they were kind. And of course, we've heard that about Bob so many times. And I do remember, nobody has mentioned this, he had a couple of bad accidents, including getting run over in downtown Cincinnati on a street corner, and it busted up his leg, and he was in a rehab place. And Carol Womeldorf and I just went out to visit him, and I was just struck by how stoic and pragmatic he was about what happened to him. There was no self-pity whatsoever. I don't know. He was just Bob, and there he was laying on the bed, and that's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
My name is Betsy Anderson, and I've belonged to Northern Hills UU Church for years. And I got to know Bob when the gathering merged with our church. And you know what I remember of him immediately when our churches merged, and he knew we had an auction and a rummage sale. Boy, he was ready to volunteer, and he joined our church. When our churches merged, it was like he was a part of us all along. He just really dug in and helped with everything. What I got a kick out of is I was in charge of Ways and Means, so I worked with the auction and the rummage sale. And very often I would get an email from Bob and he said, "Be prepared, I've been thinking again, I have another idea." and he always did. In fact, one of his ideas was to have split the pot at the auction. And sure enough, we did it and it was successful. And he had lots of ideas like that. But I remember him with the rummage sales. He supplied, not only with the rummage sales, but the auction, he supplied a whole bunch of stuff that we offered. He would go out and he would walk through the neighborhoods, he would see things put out for the garbage, and he would bring them in, and they were nice things. And he probably went to the thrift stores and picked up stuff. So, you know, as I said, a lot of things we had on our sales were because of Bob. So he was just, you know, a wonderful contributor to everything that we did here, and we surely will miss him. I have to tell you one little story about exercising. I did not know that he didn't like exercising, but my husband is the same way. And when he has to go to the restroom, which many people call the John, he says he has renamed the John to Jim. And he said, "I am going to the gym." And so that was his way of doing the little finger trick, going up and down. So anyway, I just missed Bob so much when he moved back to California. He's really a great guy.
Hi, I'm Linda Gutowski, and I was also on the committee with Bob to raise money for this church. And I think there were 6 of us old ladies that showed up for the meetings, and Bob was always there, never intimidated by this room full of ladies. And he would just come up with these ideas and just spontaneously contribute so much thoughtfulness. We miss him terribly to this day. But, you know, he was always gung-ho about doing another rummage sale, and as we all got into our mid-70s and approaching 80, we kept saying, "No, Bob, that's just too much work. We can't do it anymore." But he was great.
Hi, my name is Ayana. I'm really bad at public speaking, so bear with me. I'm Uncle Jimmy's, Jamestown's niece. Bob always came to our family gatherings, like Uncle Jimmy said, and I was always one of the ones that went up to Bob and talked to Bob, and just seeing him, my uncle, and seeing the person that my uncle was able to be with him and around Bob, and just that kind of vulnerability and comfortability, sorry, I don't know how to say words sometimes either. That comfortability just being around Bob and our family, it really meant a lot to me to see that for my uncle. And he said that Bob was his best friend, but Bob was my best friend, honestly. I just, when my uncle shared the news about what happened to Bob, the first kind of thought in my head was my uncle lost his best friend, and I can't imagine I just can't imagine what everyone here in this room is kind of going through, just knowing Bob and the person that he is. So, yeah, sorry.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks. When I met a lot of you guys coming in here, you said you remember me from when I was 9, which was, I think, maybe the last time I was in Cincinnati, and probably my favorite memory of my grandpa. On that trip, I got to drive somewhere with him. It was brave, I know. I lived to tell the tale. But separately from my family, and convinced him to stop at Grader's on the way to wherever we were going, and we got ice cream together. And then we went to whatever event we were all going to together. And at the event, he and I were able to convince everybody that probably on the way home, we should all stop for Grader's. So he and I had Grader's twice that day, and he said, don't tell anybody, it's a secret. And I remember standing in line and looking at him and like, am I supposed to be here? Am I allowed to not say anything? And I think eventually the guilt caught up to me and I had to confess. Yeah, I know my mom already said it, but he sent us cards for every holiday there was, from New Year's, birthday, Easter, St. Patrick's Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. That's 7 cards or more a year, and that was 21 years for me, which is almost 150 cards. And most of them are still in my room at home, and he also used to send me letters when he lived in Cincinnati, and he talked about you guys a lot. He always would talk about having baked a cake for a bake sale or a rummage sale. I don't remember, I was 9, but yeah, cheesecakes. Yeah, he would always talk about baking for his church. And I knew him in the part of his life where he did show a lot of emotions, and he always told myself and my brothers that he loved us, but he also showed us that he loved us every single holiday and every single trip, and he didn't rely on just telling us to make sure we knew, which maybe comes from when he didn't have the ability to say that out loud and express it in that way. He showed us in everything we did, so it just made it all the more clear that he loved us, and so sorry, now I'm getting lost, but he would say it and he would show it, and that is twice as valuable. And now I live 2 states from my family, and I miss them, and I tell them that I love them, but Grandpa Bob reminds me to show them too. And my dad writes me letters at school, and I'm so grateful that Grandpa Bob was in my life and that he gave me the best dad ever.
Thank you.
Pardon me? Is there anyone else who would like to share? Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, because we thought we knew him, and we've learned so much more now, and we're very, very grateful. And I've lost my page. I'm sorry, everyone. I have just... If I don't find my page, we'll be here a really long time. Kidding, but this has been such a joy to be together with people who were friends of Bob's. It is just a beautiful way to remember people. This is why we call it a celebration of life. And I'm sorry, one second. I'm gathered. Okay. Bob is missed. May we aspire to be missed for similar reasons. If you would like to join me together in reading the closing words that are in your program, please do so. We bless you on your journey. We honor and celebrate the life that has been yours, the lives you've touched, the legacy you leave. We release old wounds and regrets. We forgive and are forgiven. We cherish the life we shared, the life that is larger than us. Out of mystery we are born, and mystery receives us when we die. With sorrow and gratitude for all that has been, we bless you on your journey.
And I'm going to close this out, guys, with some... Sorry, Sue, did you have something to say?
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
If I can find it. I just need to say, on behalf of Bob's family and all those who have been touched by the ripples that he set in motion, thank you for being here. It's been a joy, except for the circumstance. So, okay, we have one last piece of music, and that Michael is going to play for us. And listen, think about kindness, and then please join us down the hall for some refreshments as we leave. In the meantime, and forever, go forth and throw stones. Thank you.
Bob's son Tom asked me to play this song, 100 Years, which is fitting. And I'm just going to apologize in advance. My voice is not in great shape, and it doesn't help that I am also a crybaby. And I was very choked up by all the words we have today. So I'm going to do my best, though, for Bob. So here it is, 100 Years. I'm 15 for a moment, caught in between 10 and 20, and I'm just dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. I'm 22 for a moment, she feels better than ever, and we're on fire, making our way back from Mars. 15, there's still time for you. never a wish better than this, when you only got 100 years to live. I'm 33 for a moment, I'm still the man, but you see I'm a they. Kid on the way, babe, family on my mind. I'm 45 for a moment, the sea is high and I'm headed into a crisis, chasing the years of my life. 50, there's still time for you, time to buy and a time to lose yourself within a morning star. 15, I'm alright with you. 15, there's never a wish better than this, when you only got 100 years to live. As time goes by, suddenly you're wise in the blink of an eye. 67 is gone, the sun is high, we're moving on. I'm 99 for a moment, and dying just for another moment. I'm dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. 15, there's still time for you. 22, I feel her too. 33, you're on your way. Every day's a new day. Never a wish better than this, when you only got 100 years to live. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Our service is concluded. Please join us down the hall. Jack, you need some?
Thank you.
You got me, man.
I got myself, you guys got me. Bob was a great guy. I didn't know him for that long, but he was so respectful to me, you know. A lot of times I just assume that like old stoic guys are not gonna get my tone as he did. So